Hey, Ryan Egan from Movement Gym. I'm going to take you guys through the sleeper stretch today. Just a couple things that we really get detailed with our students here is two things. Structure, so that's basically your posture, your position, and your angle, so that we can make sure that that's numero uno, because you want to be able to attack the thing that you want to attack. So you have to be able to keep yourself in a position so you can kind of get at the angles that you're trying to get at. And then number two is organizing your contractions, and so making sure that people understand which side of the joint they want to communicate with, so making sure that they really are clear on their pails and their rails, and understanding too where those where the stuff, the contractile fibers on each side of the joint originate, and how it's organized based on your structure. So both of those two things, so your structure and your organization of your contractions, both play off each other. And if those two things are done correctly, then you're going to be able to appropriately increase the intensity and allow somebody to begin communicating with the right stuff and communicating in a way that you can start driving some change over time. And that's basically it. So I'm going to take you guys through getting set up, where your contractions originate, how to maintain your structure during your mobility drill, during the sleeper stretch, and how those things are managed so you can kind of get where you want to go. All right, so number one thing that we're going to get dialed is your structure. So we need to be able to get into a posture and a position so we can get the appropriate angle on what we're doing the sleeper stretch on the back of the shoulder capsule. So we're really wanting to attack those deeper layers of tissues that are connecting the arm to the body. I like to give people a box. This is going to help us to stay in position, kind of use our feet to push against, and it's going to help us make sure that we keep the shoulder where we want it as we start to progress the tissues. A couple things that we want to, some landmarks that we want to kind of identify are the outside of the shoulder here. So we've got the little bump on your shoulder, the little acromion process here where kind of some couple bones kind of start tying together. And then we have the outside of that. We're going to have that outside angle. So we have the scapula that comes up here on the back of the shoulder. And what we want to do is we really want to identify that outside corner. And that is the thing right there on the outside edge that we're really going to want to keep pinned to the floor. This is going to allow the glenoid to, it's going to allow us to organize the body and the glenoid appropriately so we can start to turn the arm in the axis that we're looking to articulate, so we can communicate with the right stuff, essentially. The other thing we want to do is making sure that we, as far as our structure is concerned, is we want to keep the shoulder blade protracted. I want to keep this, pressed down, protracted, slightly posterior tilted. We really want to make sure it's abducted. We want to keep the shoulder blade out, away from the back of the body. We want to keep it away from the back of the body, and we want to keep it out here so we can help build that backstop for the back of the capsule, because if it starts to retract, the back of the capsule gets a little sloppy and we're not actually progressing the right stuff at the right angle, and that's what we want to do. So we want to keep that shoulder blade there, and then obviously keeping your posture. I'm making an assumption that we already understand which side of the joints we're communicating as far as our pails and rails. Quickly, when we pail, we're going to be contracting this stuff into external rotation. When we rail, we're going to be contracting this stuff inside the armpit into internal rotation. So I'll get you guys started here. So hopefully you guys can see both sides of me in the mirror. I'm going to use my feet. I'm going to get down and I'm going to get bent. So I got my knees bent pretty good, and I have my little box here. So you guys may use a wall or something. I usually lay down, I protract, I reach out, I get my shoulder blade set, get my arm straight, and then I roll my body up onto that little outside part of my shoulder. And so when we start stretching the shoulder, you're going to find that the back of the capsule is fairly tight, and the shoulder is going to want to roll up and up into this top part of the shoulder. This is where we have a lot of problems with people that have some impingements up here in the top part of the compartment. So you want to make sure that you've got that bone pinned down, and we want to make sure that that shoulder blade is protracted. As you can probably see, I don't have this thing sticking out the back. It's not winging, it's not sticking, I'm not sloppy here, I'm not hanging out. You can see that that's kind of what we want to avoid, is allowing this thing to kind of stick out the back. We want to keep that thing pressed against the rib cage, and I can kind of do that by, if you can see me in the mirror, I'm reaching with my elbow in that direction. That's going to help keep me protracted. And then lastly, obviously, is getting into my posture. We have people, if you're not supporting the neck, you need to support the neck. So, because if you're having, people with shoulder problems have neck problems, and people with neck problems typically have shoulder problems, and you want to make sure that this is super important because it's so close to the spine and a very intimate part of the spine that we want to keep everything really well organized. And so I'm going to get myself into a position, and so now I have myself into a place that I can start to communicate with my shoulder. So that was a lot. Here we go. So I'm going to actively take my arm into internal rotation. Okay, so I decided to show you my shoulder, bad shoulder. So just to make it obvious, I'm going to take active, that's what I have actively. I'll grab myself below the wrist. Do not grab yourself around the hand. Below the wrist, I'm going to gently push myself into a stretch. And you'll notice right away that things want to move. So this stuff's pretty tight. The stuff that we're going to communicate with is pretty snug. I find people that'll have their elbow up. We want to keep that elbow pressed down. That'll just kind of continue to keep the neck nice and soft. And then I just begin. I'm going to begin with my tail. I'm going to stretch for a minute, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then I'll tail contract. You probably can see some things working back there. And then I'll rail contract, making sure that I'm keeping my position. So again, structure, and then organizing my contractions. And then after my rail, about 10 seconds, I'll go ahead and progress the tissue. I just kind of feel my way along. Again, the whole time, keeping myself, I'm using the box, I'm really pushing here to keep myself on top of my shoulder. And then again, keeping my shoulder blade. You're probably seeing that it's not popping out the back of my skin here. That's allowing me to actually communicate with the back of the capsule properly.
So I wanted to quickly just show you guys from the front, because you got to see the back, got to see how I was keeping my shoulder blade in position, how when I was progressing during my small window of stretch there, I wasn't allowing the shoulder to roll out and up, or the shoulder blade to retract back and get sloppy. I just wanted to show you getting organized from the front here. So I'll just do my other arm. Again, I kind of lay down, I get my shoulder blade out, and I kind of get everything protracted, abducted, and then I'll roll myself up on top of the outside of my shoulder here. I'll take my head, take my little head support, get everything pushed in, and I'll get myself pushed into my box here. And if that's not comfortable enough, which it's not, I need to get a little bit more angle on it. I'll get myself, and I'll spend my time really getting set up well. We really stress that position. So then making sure that that thing's pinned down, I have no shoulder blade popping out, get my neck supported, elbows down, and here we go. I can get myself into position, and I can start talking to this shoulder. And I'll show you, as I start to stretch, what I see a lot of my students do is they'll lose their position. So they'll lose their structure as they stretch, and they just kind of unknowingly kind of take tension off of this stuff, and they start to stretch and they'll roll just a little bit, and they'll start to lift up. And so I'll come around, I'll stick my finger right under here, find the outside corner of this shoulder right on the edge of the bone. If that thing's not pinned down, they've changed their axis. They've changed the angle in which they're starting to communicate, and they're starting to stretch something else. So there's movement going on, and they're not actually keeping the shoulder in position so that they can actually talk to the stuff that they need to talk to. So as I increase tension, I need to increase my stability in my position, and that's going to allow me to start to communicate with exactly what I want to communicate. So for those of my students that have a tough time going through fast, or those of you guys that are struggling, that's probably the key. I hope that helps. Structure and organization. Have fun.